Alright, today we're going to make some strawberry wine. I have about roughly 10 pounds of strawberries, 4 pounds of white sugar, 2 pounds of dark brown sugar, 2 oranges, a box of raisins, and some yeast. And that's all we're going to need to make this delicious strawberry wine. And also, I almost forgot, we're going to need about 2 gallons of water. This should make us roughly 2.5 gallons, maybe 3 gallons. We'll see where it ends up. But let's get started. Okay, first thing we're going to want to do is bring to a boil about 1 gallon of water. Typically, I like to use about half of the quantity of liquid to boil my water, and I'm going to dissolve my sugar into here and make a simple syrup. Once the water comes to a boil, I will allow it to, I'll bring it off the heat and allow it to cool for a little bit, then I will dissolve the sugar into it. So that is the next step. Okay, so while the water is boiling, I chopped up some raisins. This is about 6 ounces of raisins. I'm going to use this in place of tannin. You can buy tannin and add it to the wine. I think tannin gives the wine a nice mouthfeel, but the raisins are going to work just fine, maybe even a little better. They'll add a little extra flavor to the wine, and it'll also act as a yeast nutrient. So win-win there. So you can buy those two things separately. You can buy a tannin and you could buy a yeast nutrient and add that to the must at a later state, but I'm going to add this into the simple syrup when that is ready. Our water is starting to boil. It's not quite a full boil yet, but as soon as it gets to a full rolling boil, I'm going to turn off the heat and begin making my simple sugar. Again, for 2 gallons of wine, I've boiled 1 gallon of water, or 16 cups of water. Alright, so while the water is boiling, we're chopping up some strawberries. We're going to prepare this for the fermenter. First, we're going to chop up all 10 pounds of strawberries, and then we're going to mash them up with a potato masher, and then I'm going to put the raisins and the orange juice in with the strawberries, and we'll put the simple sugar on top of that. Okay, so we got all of the strawberries chopped up, and now we are mashing it down with the potato masher. You can see it's almost like a jam consistency. We're going to try and put this into a mesh bag, at least the solid strawberries, and put it all in the fermenter, and then we'll pour the simple syrup on top of this. Okay, so now we're taking the smushed strawberries, and we also added the raisins, and we're going to put it in a mesh bag inside the fermenter. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we're dumping the strawberries in here. And we're going to try and get all of those strawberries into a very small mesh bag.
And don't forget, you also put the raisins in here.
Yes, and we also added the raisins that I chopped up. So approximately 10, maybe 11 pounds of strawberries and 6 ounces of raisins chopped up. And typically for a gallon of wine, you're going to want between 4 and 5 pounds of fruit. Okay, so now that the water is boiling, I'm going to turn it completely off from the heat, and we're going to add our 4 pounds of white sugar and our 1 pound of dark brown sugar, and we'll wait until the sugar dissolves to make our simple syrup. Go ahead. And we're going to just stir this until the sugar dissolves, about half of that, because that's 2 pounds. Good. I'm going to go ahead and dissolve all of the sugar until the water is clear. Alright, so I juiced 1 medium-sized orange from Citra, Florida. It's a very juicy orange, so I'm only going to use 1 orange, and I'm going to put this directly on top of my strawberry / raisin compote that I have in the fermenter right now. Alright, so orange juice in, and the juice of the orange, I'm using that in place of citric acid. If you wanted to, you can actually use citric acid for this, but since I don't have it, I'm just going to use the orange instead. Okay, now we're going to dump the simple syrup into the fermenter. And it looks like it's at a little over 2 gallons. I'm gonna let it, I'm gonna put the lid on it, and I'm gonna let it cool to pitching temperature. Once it's at pitching temperature, I'm gonna bring the water level up to maybe just under the rim. This way we'll have a nice environment for the yeast to thrive in.
What's pitching temperature?
Pitching temperature is around 80 degrees.
All right.
Alright, so we're taking the gravity, and I can't really read it there, so I'll have to put the gravity in the comments. And I'm going to check the temperature, and if it's below or around 80, I'm going to put the yeast in. So let's check the temperature. Temperature is... Now we're going to pitch the yeast, and today we're using some EC 1118. I love this stuff because it really produces a very high alcohol content, and since our starting gravity is around 1.09, 1.10, it should be some pretty intense wine, but we're probably going to add some water to it after this first fermentation. We're going to leave the berries on for a little while, and Cooter is going to put the yeast in now. And there we go, we got the yeast in. We're going to give that a really good stir, and then we're going to close it up and let it ferment overnight, and then in the morning we're going to stir it again. We're going to do that for 7 days, and then we're going to let it sit and take the berries off, and then we'll let it ferment for an additional 7 days before we rack it off. Okay, so we're stirring the must after Cooter put the yeast in, and we're going to do this for the next 7 days. We'll open it and stir it once a day for the next 7 days, and then on the 7th day we'll remove the berries from the must and allow it to ferment for an additional 7 days, and then we're going to rack it into some carboys, and depending on what the gravity is, we may add some additional water. And until next time, oh yeah, now you're talking. it.